Hey, and welcome to episode 4 of Couples Connected. I'm Paige,
I'm Robert.
and we decided to create this podcast for those who are on the awakening or spiritual journey as a couple, as then again as individuals, and then trying to navigate, the whole journey with kids. So as parents as well. So our episode today, we thought we would connect to do you want to talk about it? Introduce it?
I know you can.
How our past stories or our past situations do not dictate our future. All right. So where do you want to start?
Yeah, I could start off with I have an instance where I had a business deal and that fell where somebody owes me a large lump sum of money. I could sit there and pity and guilt, or not guilt, but like heavy energies which will no longer serve me. All I can do is take care of in the present moment. Just because that happened to me doesn't dictate what the future is going to bring for me. So, how am I going to react to it? What am I going to do about it? Yeah, it was shitty, but you I'm more than that, and if I want to get through it, I have to consciously in the present moment take care of my business and do what I need to do to move forward. The past isn't going to change. I can just learn from it and move forward with the lessons that come from it. Because there's definitely always lessons to be learned from stuff.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
I would say those lessons come from not what you want, but what you are. So if that's what your thought patterns are and what your belief systems, they're bringing stuff to you. So you got to change that. You got to be what you want. You have to embody that, as you would say.
Do you maybe want to give an example of how people can do that, or do you want to talk about that in a little bit, or?
Yeah, so like for instance, we could use the situation, say if you want to be a millionaire, well, you have to go around doing the habits and the thought patterns that a millionaire would do. You can never become a millionaire with a poverty mindset, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think the millionaire uses their resources and their thoughts uh, to gain wealth, not by doing things that wouldn't attain them wealth, right? So you have to hold that energy. So if you want to become something greater than what you are right now, I think you have to raise your energy and start acting on that level. You're never gonna become that different person if you're just sitting down lower on a lower frequency and playing the victim.
Mm-hmm. And I think that takes like a lot of strength and a lot of courage. Like it's easier said than done, right? Because like when those shitty things happen, when those shitty things happen, or we can also call them dark nights of the soul, big lessons, whatever you want to kind of to use the terms, but when those things happen, like you're down, like you are the lowest vibrational frequency in that moment that you have been up until that point. So trying to get yourself out of that frequency and out of that vibration and out of that mindset to make that like statement that this is not going to dictate the rest of my life, or this is not going to dictate my future, takes balls. Right? It takes courage to do that, because again, we talked about this last episode, because then that fear comes in of like, well, how do I believe that it's actually going to be better next time? How do I know that's just not going to blow up in my face again? How do I know that I'm good enough to actually try again? Or why bother? All those things like come flooding in
Yeah,
to deter you from not meaning to, right? They're trying to keep you, those thoughts are trying to keep you safe, but they do deter you from jumping forward or like leaping into the next thing or like trusting in the next thing or getting yourself out of that like vibrational sinkhole.
yeah. And I think at times, sometimes we play small ball because are, we create a life for ourselves and we want to provide for the family around us. But if you're not going after what truly lights you up, then I think you're not really showing and providing your kids what they need, right?
Mhm.
Like if you're playing small and just showing up to a job that you just hate and it's just paying the bills, I know it's tough. It's tough to take that leap and to start creating something that is new and exciting and unknown. Very much the unknown.
Mhm.
Because with the unknown becomes a lot of trust, I would say.
And I like how you use the example of like the job, going to the same mundane job every day just because you feel like you have to do that to provide for your family, to provide stability, to provide all those things. So like that could be that story that dictates your future.
I would
Like I think that's a story or a past or whatever that a lot of people are stuck into that is dictating their future.
I don't know whether to thank the older generation or feel sorry for them, where some people, they only had one job in their life and they showed up to it for 50 years in and out.
As
I
a,
I don't know how they ever could have done it. Like it's
I
just,
don't either. And as a manifesting generator for everyone out there, you know, my human design lovers, I'm a manifesting generator, and that I would that would be a total energy deplenish for me. I just couldn't. There's no way. So I bow down to those who did do it and has done it. But it's just funny how a lot of us now are like, wait a minute,
I
that doesn't seem right. That doesn't feel good.
I think the matrix, if you want to say that, is trying to contain everybody's power. Each individual person is more powerful than they could ever imagine. You you are created in the image of the creator, so there's a lot of beauty within you. You are loved and connected to everybody on this planet. And yeah, it's just go for it.
Yeah. So going back to like what we were talking about with the stories don't dictate your future. Yeah, I'll just kind of jump in there about like an example for mine. Again, going back to my human design lovers out there, I am a 3-5. So a 3-5 in my profile means that I am a trial and error. So like my whole life has been trial and error. So I very much like I don't even know which story to begin with because there's so many things that I have tried out and has either fizzled and like flamed out, or I totally lost interest, or something came and just, I don't know, it just fucked up. So if I allowed myself to be stuck in those, like every time I tried something and every time it didn't work, if I allowed myself to be stuck in that, like, oh, well, that didn't work. So I guess, you know, I'm never going to try again. Why bother? What's the point? I suck at this. I'm obviously no good. I have no gifts. I have no right. I very well could have got stuck in that so many times for a lot of parts of my life. But yeah, somehow I get out of it every time. And I'm trying to think of ways that I can kind of talk about how I was able to go to those crash and burn moments, but yet pull myself out. I think you, as being my partner has helped me out quite a lot with helping me see the possibilities of still what could, so
Yeah.
that was a huge help.
I think with those experiences, they're stepping stones or learning experiences.
Yeah, you can't just expect to like wake up one morning and like pull off the covers and like, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready for the next thing. That happens. So let's go. It's like, I mean, some people maybe could do that, but I think that's very unrealistic to think it's gonna happen that way. It is, you're right, it is a stepping stone of little things, and it is coming back to like the dreaming again. Being able to come back to being able to dream again.
And I think sometimes you'll have the void because you're trying to change,
That's a good one to bring up, yes.
from being one person to another. So it's just not instantaneous because it's just not like we go to sleep and then the next morning you get up and you get to be a whole new version of yourself.
I know you hear that all the time in the spiritual community, the let's have a moon circle and release our fears, release our doubts, release our stories, and we'll be a brand new person. It's just, it doesn't happen that way. I mean, that's again, like you said, a nice stepping stone, a nice ritual, a nice ceremony to add into that magic and add into that whole frequency and vibrational, concept. But it's just not a magic like, woo, let's throw those things in the fire, burn it up, and we're good to go.
Yeah.
The new moon is here, so we're good, we're new. Like, it's just, but I do like how you put in there about the void, because that's a huge one. That's a huge one that everybody hates to be in. But there's so much magic that happens in the void. And there's no timing. Like, there's no like, okay, I'm gonna allow myself to be in the void from Sunday, but then by Friday, I'm done, I'm out. Like, that's
No,
the other piece. Like,
that's
there's-
not how it works.
Yeah, there's no like schedule on. Yeah. Come in, so we're gonna wrap this up soon. But there is that, yeah, there's no schedule. Everybody's different. Every situation you go through is different. Depending on how long that void's gonna be. I mean, some people go through that void for a year or two, or a couple years. Some people go through that void for like a couple months, a couple weeks, like.
Yeah, I would say I've kind of been going through it for well over a year. I
Yeah,
have a situation that's
you
um,
can. Sorry.
I'm trying to resolve, but it just seems to hold on. But then again, it comes down to how are you feeding that monster? What are you doing, right? Are you holding on to that story
You're feeding the story,
and,
stoking it.
and feeding the story? Because you could be making it a lot worse than what it really is. And you've laughed at me at times for this, about being in situations where I was making it bigger than it needed to be, confronting people or talking to people that I needed to talk to. I had it in my head that it was gonna be a lot worse than it really is. Just taking those steps and taking action is the best way to dissolve that fear. Or to get rid of that story that is playing in your head. And then you can start saying no and creating the story you want by doing actions that you feel are in alignment and moving you towards it.
Yeah, that's true. Like, so human of us to make things way worse than they need to be. Again, because our that freaking little ego in us, just tries to go to the worst case scenario. To try and keep us safe, to try and make us okay. I think, I don't know why I would do that in that moment, but maybe so we're prepared for the worst case scenario. I don't know.
I think it's just the ego tries to keep you safe by
But why
Give-
would it take us to the worst case scenario every time? So could we be prepared for it? That's what I mean.
yeah. If you guys have any thoughts on that,
Yeah.
that would be
Like, we
Or
know
shares.
the ego's there to keep us safe, but why does it always go to worst case scenario every time?
why can't we be playing the best situation in our heads?
Yeah, why does that take so much work? Sorry. For those who are watching this, the side note, I don't know if we talked about this before, but we did move to Costa Rica, so it's so hard to like focus on the camera when there's like birds and everything flying around. So there's a toucan that keeps flying around, so it keeps grabbing my attention. So if we're off like this as we're talking, that's why. It's not because we don't want to talk to you. It's just we're distracted. We're in it, but like our eyes are distracted by all the things flying around.
And that leads to about going, having courage and bravery to do something new. It's this journey that we're on, yeah, there's a lot of what ifs. It could go sideways in an instant, but following your guidance system. We've never really touched on it, but everybody has ancestors, guides, and spirits that they can tap into to help them for guidance. They're just sitting there waiting to help you on this journey.
Yeah, and I think that really actually helps you create that new story. So when we were talking about going through it, it fails, it crashes, burns, it didn't work out, and you're in that void. Yeah, I think that coming back to that on your way out, or like when you're in the void, continuously connecting to that, whatever it is you connect to, if it is your guides, if it is your spirit, if it is your heart center, if it is whatever modality that's going to work for you at that moment, and then listening to it and then following it, even if in that moment it doesn't make sense or you can't see it ever happening in that moment, but just kind of start feeding that story, feeding that future, kind of helps you with that next step or with that clarity or even with that passion or excitement again after whatever it is that just happened.
And I would say there's no one size fits all or cookie cutter.
No.
And we're all unique individual beings that have talents and given abilities that we're supposed to share to this world. And it's leaning into that, right? It's hard to discern what it is that you think, or sometimes you just run away from it because you don't want to do that in that given moment.
Ah, that's another way how you can create that story, right? So instead of, yeah, your past dictating your future.
Yeah.
Again, that totally dictates it, because if you're not confronting it, if you're just running away from it, if you're just avoiding it, then yeah, that's going to dictate your future in another totally different way. If anything, a more disconnected way, right? Not in alignment with who you truly are.
And I think it alludes to what we said in one of the past episodes is it'll be like a drum. It'll just start beating. It'll be just small and just slow, but as you keep on avoiding it, it just gets louder and louder until there's a point where you just, as a parent, like you just snap and you're like, enough is enough.
Yeah, that's another route that happens too, isn't it? When they're past kind of, and they're in that state, and as you do, that's another way of getting out of it. Yeah. And creating that new future. Sometimes that's going to happen to you too.
But that's not the most enjoyable way. So I would never say let me get to that point. I think with awareness and consciousness and deep introspection, doing journaling or internal audit, asking yourself questions, it will help see how you operate and what your thought patterns are, right? And see what you need to dissolve and just allow to go.
And I want to kind of point out too that as you're creating your future from past experiences, so like not letting your past dictate your future, it's not easy either. That's not an easy case either. So I want to give you an example. Both Rob and I had businesses in the past that totally didn't work out, that totally just sucked the energy, everything, our beliefs, everything just right out of us. I was in the void and all that for probably a good 2 years. Rob was in it for a good almost 2 years. He's working his way out of it now. But while both of this was happening, so that was like 4 years of this going on between him and then me. Prior to that, I did see this future of us in Costa Rica, where we are now. And that future, future
Timeline.
time, yes, thank you. That future timeline, that higher timeline was still there. I connected to it like all the time, every time, as much as I could, knowing that that is our future. I didn't know how, I didn't know when, especially when I started to kind of climb myself up back from the void or back from that old story. And then Rob collapsed down. So then I had to wait for him to climb back up. So it took us 4 years, I think, or more, to hit this timeline, but we didn't let those past experiences affect us. Like we very well could have put up our hands and like, well, that fucked up. That didn't work out. Well, there goes all our money. There goes our trust. How can we ever trust ourselves? How can we ever trust our intuition again? How can we ever trust other people again? Right? So how can we trust each other? Because we'll talk about that in other episodes. How can we even trust each other at this point? Are we together? Are we separate? So there was so many stories that very well could have change this timeline that we're in now. We could have very well stuck with the lower vibrational like thoughts and stories and just gave up and got ourselves a regular job somewhere. Sure, good benefits, whatever, because we both do have that background. We both do have that those papers, quote papers behind us that we could very well do that. But we just knew that it just was not, that was just not for us. That just was not for our kids. It just wasn't. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of give you another example of how how it worked for us.
Yeah.
And how, yeah, we got kibosh and slammed and over and over and over again. But we still kept on the same trajectory, the same path. Like we knew where we wanted to go. And then, so now we're here and this is what we chose. This is what we saw in our future. This is where our heart has led us, sorry. But I'm gonna be honest, and we'll talk about this in another episode. It's not easy. It's still those moments of like, holy shit. Like, why are we here? What's going on? What we chose this? Why did we choose this? Why did we fight so hard to stay on this timeline and on this path? And it just kind of keeps, then that's where you have to keep coming back to that heart center, right? Of like, this is connecting to our why and why we're here and what's like, right? They say, what did they say? The universe, well, I wish I had these sayings on. The universe rewards people who take the risks, who take the leaps, who trust, right? And so here we are. So it's, we still don't know what that reward is. We still don't know what that future completely looks like. But it still feels good at the same time. It feels like it's rocky, it's uncomfortable. I would say we are now into a new kind of void at the moment, but we know, again, we can kind of take a look at our past, because yeah, we went through a lot of shit, but now we can take a look at our past and be like, oh yeah, everything did work out. Once we just breathed and kept working, like kept stepping forward, things did align, things did end up making sense, things did work out just fine.
You just might not have that human piece or like possessions, right? But there's lessons to be learned in everything, and those lessons will keep on showing up if you don't confront them. Like we just had an experience of purchasing a vehicle, but we'll maybe go into it on another topic. And there was still a lesson that was showing up for both me and Paige to be learned out of it. But it was also a good reflection to say, we don't want to be that type of person in the interaction, right? We want to hold integrity and honesty, right? And if, yeah, if you don't hold those values in the world, then it makes it pretty hard to look yourself in the mirror.
Yes, so those are also kind of good things to keep in mind, like sticking with that integrity and that alignment as you're, again, creating that future so that those past things don't drag you down.
Yeah. We'll get into that maybe in another episode about mirroring and reflection.
Mirroring is such a good one, especially as a couple. So we'll have to definitely dive into that one.
So
All right, well,
we'll let you go for today. I
yeah,
think we've
that's
held you
pretty
long
good.
enough.
Yeah, all right. So until next episode, folks. Pura vida, as they say here in Costa Rica.